by talking about the father, your father's side of your family. Okay, who's your father?
Dr. Pat Kane.
Okay, and then his brothers were who?
Ed and Will, Joe, John, and Rich. And then he had a brother that died as an infant, another John.
Okay.
And his sister Kate.
Okay, sister. And then what was their parents' names?
John P. and Elizabeth. John P. Kane and Elizabeth Dolan.
And where did they raise their family, their sons?
Well, based originally up in Dublin Gulch, and then after the father died, they moved from the Gulch down onto Galena Street, lived there.
And so when did the father die?
Around 1911, I think.
And what did he die from?
I don't,
Carcinoma of the left lung.
is that what it was? Yeah.
So the kids were still young when their father died?
Well, I think Rich, the youngest child, was about probably 9 years old.
And the oldest would have been how?
Ed would have been, I think Ed had just graduated from Tech, probably early 20s.
And so what did their mom do after her husband died?
Well, she stayed up in the Gulch for 4 or 5 years, and then they bought the house in Galena Street, and she moved down there, and they had all of the sons and the daughter lived with her until they married. Ed married first, as I remember. Ed and Will and Dad married probably before 1920. Joe and John and Rich didn't marry until 20 years later. And they lived with their mother all that time. And Kate married Joe Thomas, and they lived in the house in Galena Street right up until the time they died. And she predeceased both of them.
Well, then what did their mother do to what did she do when she was widowed? How did she make a living?
I don't think she had any income at all, John. I think it was a matter of the family living together and supporting each other that way. Joe was a doctor and John was a dentist, and then Rich finished medicine in the middle 20s, and he lived there till he married.
Well, so their father, was he a miner, or what was he?
Well, he was actually, when he died, I think he was the superintendent for Heinze in the Elmer mine.
And did he start out as an educated person in the area of mining, or did he start out as a miner?
He started out as a miner, to the best of my knowledge.
Did he die from something contracted in the mine?
Well, I guess you would say that it was a result of working in the mines.
Okay, and then his father, who was the first to come to Butte?
John P.
The one that died?
My grandfather.
The one that died in 1911. He came from Ireland?
Yeah, he came from Ireland.
Okay.
His father was never in the United States.
So and then the kid's mother, Dolan, when did her family get here?
Well, about the same time. She was really born in England. She was Irish, but I don't recall whether her family brought her to, her mother lived with her for several years up in Galena Street. So her mother and her father too, both came from Ireland. She must have come over from Ireland as a young child and with her parents. Now, as I remember or recall, there was a period when they were in Boston. How long, I don't know.
So you had JP and his wife up in the Gulch. He dies in 1911. She's left with all these kids, the oldest maybe in Tech. How did they manage to be able to go to medical school? get the educations that they got?
Well, they worked in the, by the time that Dad and the rest of them were old enough to go to college, Ed was working for the company. And in the summertime, Ed hired them when they were out of school, and they worked summers for him, and it was more or less a community effort or a family effort for each of them to go to school. When Rich was in, I'm not aware about Dad and Joe, but when Rich was in school, I know that the whole family was contributing to Rich's education. Will never went to school. Will didn't finish high school. Will went to work in a blacksmith shop right out of the 8th grade. And so he was a wage earner at that time. It was several years before they even knew he didn't go to school. Old blacksmith McLeod sent phony report cards home for him so he could stay working in the blacksmith shop. But he was a wage earner then, probably making the most wages in the family at that time. But then, see, Dad had the accident with his eye. Dynamite cap blew one of Dad's eyes out. Grandfather took him all over the country trying to, I don't know where, but I know they did everything they could to try and do something about his eye, which was his lost cause. Consequently, he missed a year of school when he was in grade school when this accident happened. But he still finished grade school in 7 years. He finished high school in 3 years. Finished medical school in 4 years, which was standard at that time. He was too young when he got his degree in medicine to be commissioned in the Army. Graduated from medical school, and World War II was on. He immediately went into the service as a buck private in a mule outfit down in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, I believe that's where it is. And the story is that eventually a commissioned officer doctor ran into him and made some provision to get him commissioned as a doctor in the Army, but he was just a regular private.
This was your father?
Yeah. Well, now...
And this was in the First World War or the Second?
First World War.
The First World War.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't... I should know this, but I don't. He interned at Cook County Hospitals in Chicago, and I think he interned prior to going into the service. But he wasn't 21 years old when he was a doctor before he had his MD before he was 21 years old.
Well, how was it that he damaged his eye? How did he get hold of the blasting cap?
Well, he and I don't know who the other kid was, but they found these blasting caps and they were walking down the railroad track up to get in the Gulch someplace, and the kid threw the blasting cap down and hit the track, and it went off and a piece of one Dad's eye.
How old was he then?
I think he was about 8 or 9 years old. He was in grade school.
Did he go to grade school? Did they all go to grade school at St. Mary's?
Mary's.
Did they ever say anything about St. Mary's School?
Well, not in particular that I remember, John.
Okay.
The nuns were teaching St. Mary's, and they didn't remark more so much about the school as there were individual nuns that they recalled that were tough or not tough, one or the other, you know. And see, there was no Boys Central that wasn't in existence then, so when they went to high school, they went to the nuns taught them in high school too, Central High School. Oh, I don't remember. I think Mother was a year behind Dad in high school. I can't, part of,
So they went to school together in Butte, your mother and
yeah.
father? Well, then one other thing about your dad's, two other things about your dad's family at least. What was your mother, did your mother try to get him to stay out of the mines? Or why is it they went to the professions? Why did they become doctors?
Well, I think it was their mother's influence and like their oldest brother, Ed's. They worked in the mines. I don't know, like John worked in the timber yard most of the time when he was in the mine. I don't know whether any of them ever really actually worked underground, but I think that was because the grandfather didn't want him in the mines. It wasn't an ideal way to grow up or exist. And they were a close-knit bunch. I mean, what one needed, the other one saw that he got.
And then you talked about your dad. About Rich, I've heard a story about him during the Second World War when he was in the medical corps, meeting General Omar Bradley. Do you know anything about that?
No, no details. He was in, I don't know when in the invasion of Europe, what part of it, what time he went into Europe, but he was involved in that. He and and Dr. Neil O'Keefe was in the office with Rich and Dad and all. Maybe they were together over in Europe, and both had some experiences in the war, but they didn't talk about it. Of course, by this time I was married and living, traveling around different places, and kind of drifted apart and all that.
And on your mom's